I now would like to give the podium to Representative Morales and Senator Mack.
Now, brothers, sisters, and non-binary family, I want to thank you all again so much for joining us for this historic press conference. This press conference focused on promoting international peace and transparency as it relates to understanding our state's pension funds and their role as it relates to investments to the military defense system. And I also would like to give a special thank you to my colleagues, Representative Susan Donovan and Senator Melissa Murray, for being here as well and their support as it relates to these two pieces of legislation. Because in between the war in Afghanistan, the invasion of Iraq, and our contributions to the humanitarian crisis happening in Yemen, our country has been deeply involved in war and international conflict for decades, despite firm opposition from peace activists and peace advocates throughout the years. As a result, millions of innocent people have been displaced from their homes, and hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians have died. While we, as peace activists, understand that these decisions as it relates to foreign policy is often made at the federal level, we also recognize that there is a lot we can do at the state and local level to promote peace and reduce our contributions to the military-industrial complex. So for that reason, we are gathered here today in support of House Resolution 7518 and House Bill 7482, both of which have garnered overwhelming grassroots support from Rhode Islanders all across the state. From the East Bay to Providence County, we are here. So first, I will start with discussing the importance of House Resolution 7518, which upon passage would allow Rhode Island to tell the federal government to sign on to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, otherwise known as the TPNW. A treaty that has already been signed on by 50 other countries and has been ratified and adopted by the United Nations. So I want to be clear that through signing and ratifying this treaty, a respective country would be prohibited from developing, testing, or possessing nuclear arms. Now, given that the United States is unfortunately, but unsurprisingly, one of the nearly a dozen of countries with the possession of nuclear weapons, the signing of this treaty would be a monumental step towards international peace and would allow us to demonstrate the necessary leadership to ensure that other armed countries sign on and join this movement. And I do want to be clear that the provisions of the TPNW does not mean that the United States signing on to this treaty would lead to unilateral disarmament. In other words, signing on to this treaty would not necessarily mean that we as a country would immediately disarm while other countries continue to be armed. Instead, signing the TPNW would signify to other nuclear-armed countries that we are ready to disarm because we are choosing peace over war. We are choosing life over death, and most importantly, we're choosing humanity over inhumanity. And as a grim but necessary reminder, we need to understand the impact of nuclear weapons because it cannot be understated. It is the blast, the heat, and the radiation of a single nuclear bomb over a region could kill and injure millions of people. For instance, the single atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945 destroyed a city larger than the city of Providence within minutes. And as a result of that, over 80,000 people lost their lives due to this insensitive and unregulated violence that had no oversight. Since then, we have lived with the fear and the experience of international threats of nuclear war. And this has led to countries wasting hundreds of millions of dollars to maintain and expand nuclear arsenals, including the United States. At the same time, working people and poor people in these armed countries are forced to starve, live without a home, and lack the necessary investments as it relates to receiving the Medicare that they need because of the fact that their country has decided to invest millions of dollars of wasted resources into these nuclear weapons. Again, as a result of ongoing fear related to international nuclear war. So all that to say that the passage of this House resolution would send a clear message to our federal government that the working people of Rhode Island do not want to engage in nuclear war or the continued storage of nuclear weapons. This is an especially important initiative following President Biden's recent budget proposal, which funds the Pentagon with over $800 billion. So as I close, I want to note that several state legislatures have already passed this resolution, including Oregon, California, New Jersey, and Maine. Even some of our own Rhode Island cities and towns have stepped up and passed this resolution, such as East Providence, Little Compton, and Jamestown. Now, given our successful committee hearing this past month that garnered over 40 letters of support, now is the time that we in the Rhode Island House of Representatives pass this resolution and send a global message that we as a country do not want and cannot engage in nuclear war that would result in mass death and violence, especially now with the ongoing invasion of Ukraine and the threat of Russia. So with all that being said, I want to thank you all so much for being here, because this is all a part of a larger grassroots movement going on across the country. And even in Little Rhodey, we are showing the impact that we can make.